In the world of stacking and collecting precious metals, the United States Mint is, even to this day, an icon. And a lot of that can be attributed to one name and one name only as director of the United States Mint. And we're going to talk about her and so much more in this video as to how we can make the U.S. Mint great again. Let's explore. Donna Pope is a name that some of you may not know, but she indeed is the most influential United States Mint director, I think, in the history of the Mint. And I'm going to explain some of the reasons why based off of an article here from Coin World and Paul Gilks, but a lot of this I knew because I am a collector, first and foremost, and the coins that you are looking at here on your screen are coins that were issued under her leadership at the United States Mint. Some of them very iconic based off of programs and also setting a precedent for how coins should be packaged and how they are distributed, and how she oversaw the most popular gold and silver bullion program in the history of the world. Donna Pope has recently just died at the age of 91. She served 2 consecutive 5-year terms as the 33rd Director of the United States Mint and oversaw the implementation of the gold and silver American Eagle bullion programs. She died on June the 23rd at her Colorado home. An Ohio native, Mrs. Pope served her first term as Mint Director beginning in July 1981, after being nominated by President Ronald Reagan and approved by the full Senate. She was nominated for a second term by Reagan. Now, she was not a diversity hire, folks. She was not the first woman to serve in this position. I think that was Brooks, who served in the 70s, and there may have been one, I think, also that served in the 50s as Mint Director as well. But nonetheless, she was nominated and served because of her credentials, because of her ability. And that's why people should be hired to do a job. And again, I'm not slamming any current U.S. Mint directors and any others, but nonetheless, you have to understand that people hired simply or primarily because of their sex or race, I think is actually does more harm than good for multiple reasons, but that's a subject for another video. According to Michael Brown, Mrs. Pope's former special assistant, she was an unwavering champion of Reagan. Before receiving President Reagan's presidential appointment, Mrs. Pope served 2 terms, served 2 5-year terms as a member of the Ohio House of Representatives, representing the then 12th District from Parma. As a Republican representative in a Democratic stronghold, Pope won re-election consistently by large margins, eventually rising to become minority whip. During the 1980 presidential campaign, Mrs. Pope served as co-chairman of the Reagan for President Committee in Ohio. Mrs. Pope started her political career as a supervisor at the Cayuga County Board of Elections in Ohio. During her tenure as U.S. Mint Director, Mrs. Pope served under 3 Treasury Secretaries: Donald T. Reagan, James A. Baker III, and Nicholas Brady. According to Brown, she regularly took on interdepartmental projects for the White House and was a regular on the administration's surrogate speaker circuit. As Mint Director, Mrs. Pope oversaw the renewal of modern U.S. commemorative coins, starting with the George Washington 250th birth anniversary silver $half and proof and uncirculated versions in 1982. This is the coin that started it all for the modern commemorative series. In fact, I'm going to put a link in the end of this video at the end screen where you can see that I have collected all of the U.S. commemorative proof coins to date from 1982 all the way to 2022, which was the last year that they minted commemorative coins, modern commemorative coins. And this is the coin that started it all. This is one of only 2 silver half dollars that were minted. All the rest of the half dollars come in clad versions like this 1986 version, which was the second half dollar to be produced in the modern commemorative series. Now, before that, most of the commemoratives, the early commemoratives started in 1892. Those were mostly half dollars that circulated, that were intended for circulation. These modern commemoratives were not intended for circulation. And the gold and silver bullion coins, they are intended to accumulate as a wealth preservation and as stackers, but not intended for circulation per se. But there are business strikes version of those, but they also produce collectible proof versions, like this 1986 Gold Eagle with the Type 1 reverse that many of us are familiar. And also the first gold coin in the commemorative series that came out was the $10 Olympic coin, but the first $5 coin that was issued was the 1986 Liberty, Statue of Liberty coin here that you're seeing before you there on the screen. Fascinating. Love these coins. More on those here in a moment. Let's talk a little bit about some of these other coins that she oversaw. She set a precedent with these programs, by the way. The 1983 and 1984 Los Angeles Summer Olympic coins, which raised tens of millions of dollars in surcharges for the staging of the Summer Olympics on U.S. soil. That was a feat in and of itself to help fund these Olympics. They produced a lot of these coins, which is why you can get many of these coins at near spot prices, and maybe even some a little bit below. This was the first silver dollar produced in the commemorative series program in 1983. And I love that reverse with the eagle there. The 1986 Statue of Liberty Centennial Coin Program, which included the first $5 gold coin, as I just mentioned, to be struck by the U.S. Mint in over 50 years, and which raised millions of dollars in surcharges for the restoration and preservation of the Statue of Liberty Monument. And that provided the Statue of Liberty dollar there, which is very popular. Millions of these were produced, and you can find them for very close a spot. There are some people that are collecting these common date and high mintage commemoratives. They're actually stacking them because you can get them 90% silver for relatively close to spot these days. Pretty wild. She also oversaw the 1987 U.S. Constitution bicentennial coins, the 1988 Seoul Olympic coins, the bicentennial of the U.S. Congress coins that came out in 1989, and that was the first production of the commemorative coins outside of a mint facility in the east parking lot of the U.S. Capitol on 7-ton coin presses hauled from the Philadelphia Mint on lowboy trailers. Now, I did not know that. The bicentennial of the U.S. Congress coins were produced in the parking lot of the U.S. Capitol. That's pretty wild. I would have loved to have seen that in person. I've got some of those coins too. I wonder if all of them were produced there. That's interesting indeed. And to oversee that project would have been something. The 1990 Eisenhower Centennial Silver Dollar. First one to be struck at the West Point Mint. The 1991 Mount Rushmore Golden Anniversary Commemorative Coins. The 1991 Korean War Memorial Silver Dollar. And the 1991 United Service Organization Silver Dollar. In 1988, Mrs. Pope oversaw the conversion of the West Point Silver Bullion Depository to full mint status as a production branch of the U.S. Mint, and the return of the San Francisco Mint to full mint status from an assay office. Another huge accomplishment from a mint director. You don't see mint directors do that stuff. You've not seen any of the mint directors do such massive projects like this, and the commemorative coins outside of a mint facility. That is how you make the United States Mint great. Mrs. Pope also oversaw the production and marketing of the American Arts Gold Medallion Program between 1980 and 84, which offered half ounce and 1 ounce 900 fine gold medals issued to compete with South Africa's Krugerrand of 0.917 fine gold bullion coin. That was the one failure that Mrs. Pope had, because the American Arts Gold Medal program was an utter disaster. Why? Because the coins were not marked with a weight and purity. They were not coins. They were metals. Yeah, I said coins. They were metals, not coins. And so they really didn't do very well, and you can find most of those for at or near spot price too. But nonetheless, she learned, and they learned quickly from the mistakes, and that's when the Congress acted and created the program, the Gold and Silver Eagle program that we enjoy today. She was also instrumental in the introduction of the 1986 of the bullion-proof American Eagle gold and silver coins, beginning the series that is still being executed today. And the American Eagle gold coin quickly supplanted the South African Krugerrand, which had dominated since 1967 as the world's leading gold investment coin. And she also testified about coin design changes as well too. And so she had quite a legacy for sure. Now, her resume beforehand did not really admittedly have as much to do with coins or manufacturing, but boy, she adapted very quickly and was excellent because she was very capable. And the thing is over the last couple of years, between two different administrations, the United States Mint has gone downhill, and it's gone downhill fast. And by the way, these two different administrations, one can conceivably say a right-wing Republican administration, and the other one being a very left-wing Democrat administration. Both had equal amounts of failure, because during the last administration, we did see the packaging go downhill dramatically, from nice quality clamshell packaging like this to the cheap ones we have today, where there is no clamshell. It's just in a cheap plastic box with all black and a black logo. And very rarely do you see collectible coins with any kind of design nature on it. It's not cheap in nature. Even some of the more collectible, nice, high dollar pieces in gold still have the same cheap, generic packaging look to it. And their prices are out of this world, insanely high, doubling the price of proof sets and other coins, and cheapening the packaging, cheapening the quality of the coins too, especially some of the gold coins with some of the finning. That's been somewhat of a problem, but it's exacerbated in recent years, especially with higher prices, much higher price increases than the amount of inflation that we're seeing, and it has become a problem. And that's why I think in some cases, U.S. Mint, some of the sales are down for some of their products. People just aren't as interested anymore. I have stopped collecting the modern commemorative coins, in part due to somewhat of what I talked about. But how can you make the United States Mint great again? Well, you could start by just going back to where you were in terms of quality and packaging and better prices, reasonable prices on some of your products. Again, we understand inflation is very real, and it affects all agencies, including government agencies that actually do make a profit, the United States Mint being one of the few government agencies that does make a profit, and with all of those revenues going into the Treasury, by the way. And so, but they've risen prices way too much, way higher than that of inflation. And I think they need to become more in line with at least inflation. And that would be a good start. And I also think that they made a huge mistake in how they communicate and how they choose some of the programs. They have become very political as an institution. And the United States Mint should not be political as an institution. And like with the Women's Quarters program, the Women's Quarter program has become completely politicized. And it is an abomination in my view. And the other matter that needs to be addressed with the United States Mint is they need to keep consistent with their announcements and the things that they promise and notifications for subscriptions, and not change it at the last minute. They just recently did that, and I think that is awful. because people thought they had time to make changes, and without warning, they changed the terms. And that is not good. That is not good business. And they've learned from some of their mistakes in recent times, having the subscription program, which I think is good. And as things change and evolve with bots and that type of thing, you have to evolve with it, but they're very slow to evolve. Now, how can they also become great again? Well, they can become great again by at least catching up to and to what other mints are doing, to become as advanced as other mints out there. We should be at least as advanced as the Perth Mint and the Royal Canadian Mint, but we're nowhere near them in terms of what they do. Now, their hands are tied to some extent by Congress and what Congress does, but not by that much. But nonetheless, there it is. That's how you can make the United States Mint great again. And the one way to do it is just to take a look back at the 2 terms that Donna Pope has served there as U.S. Mint Director. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.